Hello and welcome to the Fifth Down Huddle. We're back here for episode 17 of the off season. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that we do have an Instagram page that posts daily NFL content, whether it be news, fantasy football tips, highlight videos from training camp, and coming next week, the NFL season. Pretty much anything you could look for NFL-wise is on that Instagram page. Same goes for the Twitter page. Also, the YouTube page. If you're listening on YouTube right now, check out the Spotify page. Otherwise, check out the YouTube page for not only full podcasts, but also separate videos that are kind of shorter takes based on news throughout the week and fantasy tips and tricks, fantasy ideas that I have that I want to share with you guys. So if you're on Spotify, feel free to check out the YouTube page, all at Fifth Down Huddle. So without further ado, let's huddle up. The first thing I'm going to talk about today is Devin Asiasi. I feel like the Patriots got a steal on this guy. Now, in order to understand why, we'll first have to look towards Devin's draft report. It shines with positivity and points towards an extremely high ceiling. I mean, just for a rundown, Devin was said to have the best hands in the 2020 tight end class. And now he wasn't known for letting the ball hit the ground. He didn't drop a ton of passes. He has solid strength and build, sitting at 6'3" and 257 pounds. Scouts also reported that he has a good yard after catch ability, as his solid athleticism combined with his build make him difficult to tackle. He's described as a solid blocking tight end, especially in the run game. He has solid route running ability, as he isn't easily thrown around at the line of scrimmage or in the middle of the field, which allows him to beat linebackers and safeties down the middle, which you really want out of a tight end. And in terms of weaknesses, he doesn't have a ton, but there are some important ones. His 40 time was disappointing at 4.73, and he isn't known for his speed in the open field. Considering it seems that his best strengths come in the passing game, it's a little disappointing to see that 40 time, but in the end, I still believe he can produce pretty well even with that relatively slow 40 time. Now, along with this, he only had 1 year of production at UCLA, following a transfer from Michigan, which it kind of hurt him in the long run. Might have been a big reason why he wasn't chosen in the first round, but based off his scouting report, he looks like a first-round tight end. Now, overall, Asiasi seems like a solid starter even without the college stats backing him up. His freshman year wasn't really worth noting, and due to transfer rules, he was unable to play in his sophomore season at UCLA after leaving Michigan, and his junior year was yet again underwhelming, as he didn't end up seeing many snaps in the first place. But in 2019, he finally put up relatively solid stats with 44 catches for over 600 yards and 4 touchdowns. So again, not a stellar college career, but Asiasi was, as I said before, seen by many scouts as a solid starter coming out of college if he could continue to develop. That's a key thing. If the Patriots can develop Asiasi, which they've been known to be able to develop these young, kind of unknown players really well, and I believe Asiasi could be the Patriots' starting tight end for years to come. Now, this is a steal for two main reasons. Firstly, the Patriots took him in the third round. Granted, Asiasi, again, was no superstar coming out of college, but spending a third rounder on someone many scouts called a near-sure starter is a steal in and of itself. And the last 2 times the Patriots drafted a tight end within the first rounds of the draft, they drafted Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez, both of which ended up being top-of-the-line tight ends in their prime. So if history has anything to say for Bill Belichick drafting tight ends early, it's in favor of Asiasi. Not to mention, Devin fits well into the Patriots' offense as well. The Patriots struggled last season, playing with a 38-year-old Ben Watson and relatively unknown Matt LaCosse at tight end. I believe it was one of the worst receiving cores in terms of the tight end position in the entirety of the NFL. And the Patriots have been known to utilize the tight end position mainly because of Rob Gronkowski, but also in the past before they even drafted Gronk in the first place. So of all spots on offense, tight end seems to be the most lackluster. I mean, the run game isn't there. The offensive line has its mishaps. The receiving group is tough, especially now that Mohamed Sanu has been cut. The receiving group for the Patriots right now is a lot of ceiling and not much proven. Really, the only proven guy in the Patriots receiving core right now is Julian Edelman. Everyone else seems to have high ceilings, but we haven't really even seen step of that long staircase for them to become true, solid wide receivers that'll fit into this Patriots offense. So therefore, if Asiasi is any good, he should get a solid amount of snaps in his rookie year and possibly take over the starting role before the season comes to a close. And not to mention, again, the Patriots receiving core, not even close to the best in the league. If Asiasi is good, then he could definitely contribute to that. And if Asiasi ends up being one of the better targets in the offense, they're definitely going to try to utilize him the best they can, even in his rookie year. Now, overall, the Patriots possibly have a steal in Devin Asiasi. Nothing is for sure, but a tight end with that type of scouting report drafted in the 3rd round to a team without a starting tight end seems like the perfect fit. Granted, it may take a year or two for things to fully develop with Asiasi, but I'd bet money on Asiasi to be the starting tight end for the Patriots within the next 2 seasons and well into the future. This year, he's going to get to play with a solid quarterback in Cam Newton, so I think this year he's going to have an even better chance to show himself than he will next year, mainly because I do not see Cam Newton playing for the Patriots after this season. I mean, it's really a prove-it deal. If he does play solid enough to start all 16 games, he's going to get an offer from another team next year that Bill Belichick is not going to want to pay for. And Bill Belichick is going to either look to sit him or is going to look to the draft to find the next quarterback, which ultimately is going to be tough for Asiasi to try and prove himself with a very young quarterback under center. But in the end, I believe this season Asiasi is definitely going to shine. He's going to surprise some people, being a 3rd-round rookie pick. Now, the next thing I want to talk about today is Madden 21. As many who follow everything NFL have probably heard, Madden 21 has received an insane amount of backlash and hate within the last few weeks. Throughout Madden's recent history, EA, the creating company of the game, has often been criticized for practically releasing the same game every year, causing customers to pay $60 for little or more than a roster update. Now this season, the floodgates really opened as wide as they go, and the community let loose on EA games. Within the last 2 days, the hashtags NFLDropEA and NMaddenMonopoly have been trending on Twitter. This primarily has to do with the fact that EA owns the rights to the NFL within the gaming market after a major dispute several years ago between 2K and the NFL based on pricing of the game. And following that dispute, EA was given the sole rights over the NFL in terms of simulation games, eliminating any competition EA once had, therefore eliminating much of the reason for EA to pump money into improving the game on a year-to-year basis, which goes back to that NMaddenMonopoly hashtag, where a lot of people are just hoping that EA can have some competition here to have a true reason to really amp up the amount of money they're putting into this game to improve it, especially considering the billions of dollars they've made off this game. Now, there were a multitude of factors that led to this year's sudden, overwhelming anger of the Madden community, but I'll cover the most important. First off, EA advertised a revamped Face of the Franchise mode in Madden as a prime selling point, as customers had expressed anger over the lackluster career modes in Madden's recent history. Face of the Franchise was advertised as an immersive and impressive career mode that would allow you to control a quarterback's career all the way from high school to retiring in the NFL. An experience that would allow the player hours upon hours of total controlled gameplay, but sadly, this really didn't end up being the case. Instead, EA released a game mode riddled with glitches and animation problems. The player's gameplay in the mode also had no effect on whether or not they were the starting quarterback throughout college and high school, as the predetermined storyline forced you to get replaced several times in your career, even if a player put up record-breaking numbers. Not only this, but it only allowed the player to partake in a handful of high school and college games before being forced into the NFL draft, which didn't end up being much of an improvement from the year before. Now, a big reason why I'm talking about this today is because I'm a Madden fan myself. I've played this game a lot, and this year, what I just talked about, the predetermined storyline, this Face of the Franchise mode was a big selling point for me to actually buy this game, and the fact that I went in there and just from personal experience in the national championship, you put up a 50 bomb. You could throw 8 touchdowns, and you still aren't the starting quarterback. It just really shows that it's a predetermined storyline that really has nothing to do with an immersive experience and is really just a story that's already set, basically like a storybook where you just jump in and play bad or play good. It doesn't really matter. Whatever happens, happens. It's already predetermined. So secondly, the new Madden title didn't come close to sufficing the hopes and dreams of the fans of the franchise mode that Madden offers. This mode allows the player to take control of either a player, a coach, or an owner and have say over trades, signings, drafting, games, and the roster. Now, these fans of this mode have been asking for updates, more control, and more realistic scenarios and gameplay for years, and yet EA hasn't delivered. This season, Madden fans were given a bug-infested franchise that mirrors last year's mode, and that many say is even worse. Now, I'm a fan of this mode myself, and I'm also disappointed. I love the control franchise mode gives you. Makes you really feel like it's basically fantasy football, but you get to play the games, and you get to make all the moves of a real NFL team. And this year, in my first minutes of playing the mode, I encountered a glitch that took away the ability to make formation subs. Now, formation subs allow you to assign certain players to certain plays based on their builds or matchup for that week, or simply for the season. I mean, personally for me, I was playing as the Patriots franchise, and I wanted it to be more realistic with the receivers and be able to get a lot of playing time from all the receivers on that team. But it didn't work because, again, EA released a very glitchy and honestly unfinished game that has received a lot of hate. Again, now, as you can see, you don't need to play the game for long to notice the errors. Even for a first-year game franchise, mistakes like these are simply unacceptable. The amount of misspelled names alone was astounding. There were a lot of pictures that went out on Twitter, and if I remember one of them, they misspelled the name of the Seahawks on one of the loading screens. I mean, come on. And simple gameplay glitches that make the game a chore to play. Because a lot of these fans wanted this game to be good. You know, it's Madden 21. This game has been going for a long, long time. It's been going since before 2000. I mean, considering they've had so much time, they were really desperately hoping that this game would really cross that line to finally be a drastic improvement from the many years before, but it wasn't. Now, on the upside, the game added a new mode called the Yard. Now, this mode allows users to create their own custom player, somewhat similar to the extremely popular 2K franchise My Player. Now, the mode definitely needs work, but it shows a nice start, considering EA hasn't added much in the realm of new modes within the last 5 years. Now, this would be great if it didn't fail to overshadow the overwhelming problems with the gameplay. It's not just the fact that the gameplay is glitchy, but the fact that EA failed to hear the community that buys their game year in and year out, and instead pumps money into modes like Superstar KO and the Yard. While these modes have their pros, they ultimately are not what the community asks for, and I honestly would believe that the community would be happier if these modes were removed, and if the modes that they truly care about were drastically improved. Now, what this truly shows is that EA has the resources to fix the problems that the Madden community has voiced their concerns over for years. I mean, heck, they created an entirely new mode, 2 entirely new modes within the last year and a half. But even having these resources, they seemingly ignore those concerns and push their resources at unneeded modes like the Yard and like Superstar KO. Now, on top of this, another thing, EA started giving away free copies of Madden 21, coincidentally, at the same time that the NFL Drop EA tweet was trending. EA seemingly used this to combat the trending tweet using a hashtag of their own while giving away free copies. Now, this is simply a theory and not proven in any way, but it's a strong coincidence if EA didn't give away these free copies with a hashtag used by celebrities strategically. Now, in the end, Madden 21 is not a terrible game by any means. There have been many sports games and simply games in general throughout the past that have failed to impress consumers, but it's really not just about the fact that it's not a perfect game. That's not really the real problem here. The simple fact that EA has had more than a decade, nearly 2 decades, to create a great game, building a new one every single year, and haven't even come close to that great product. We don't need a perfect product. It's a football game. It's a simulation football game. You're not going to get it perfect. It's not going to be completely realistic. But the changes that the community have been asking for the last 2 decades, honestly, don't require a perfect game. They're changes that EA has shown they can do by adding the yard and by adding Superstar KO. They have the resources. And they're not extremely difficult changes. So again, the fact that they haven't come close to that great product is simply disappointing. Now, I'd say it mainly has to do with EA focusing on microtransactions for profit, but also the lack of competition EA has in the sports gaming industry, as they have the rights to the NFL in terms of simulation-style games. I think that's a big problem, and hopefully the NFL comes to realize this and either drops EA or creates competition that would force EA to meaningfully improve their game. I think a great candidate for that would be 2K. 2K has been handling the NBA great for the last several years. Now, granted, the NBA 2K community has their moments of disappointment, but it has never come nearly as close as Madden 21 has in terms of disappointment and hate from the fan base. So it just goes to show that the NFL, I believe, should take a minute to really reconsider this, not only for just financial reasons, which would ultimately be a benefit for them, but also just for the fans. And it's kind of that trade-off of if the fans are happy, you're going to make more money from the game. And if the NFL comes to realize that and decides to drop EA or just creates competition, then I think it would really improve the game and really improve the financial benefits that they're getting from the game. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I know that the NFL is about the money. It's a business. You can't blame them for it. The people are there to get paid. They're doing what they do to get paid. They're going to do what brings them the most money. And honestly, I believe that the NFL creating competition for EA rather than simply dropping it would bring them in a lot more money. And it would help the fans too. Because if you don't like Madden 21, there could be another company or another 2 companies that are also creating a simulation game that year. Choose one of them. Try them out. Just the competition, I believe, would really help improve this game and improve the financial benefits that the NFL is getting from the Madden franchise or just simply simulation NFL football games in general. Now, the next topic I'm going to talk about today are why the Broncos will make the playoffs in 2020. Now, if you haven't seen my video on Drew Lock earlier this month, go check it out on the YouTube channel before you hear this. It goes over Drew Lock's career up to this point, and it really focuses on why Drew Lock will be an extremely talented quarterback for years to come, and why he is severely underrated in this league. Now, before I look into the entire team, I need to reestablish why Drew Lock is the right quarterback for the Broncos, and why he will be the most crucial piece to the Broncos making the playoffs this season. Headed into the NFL, Drew Lock fell out of the first round of the draft, all the way to the 42nd pick. Quarterbacks Dwayne Haskins, Daniel Jones, and Kyler Murray were chosen before him, and the Broncos had high hopes for Lock out of training camp, but sadly Lock was injured in the preseason and placed on injury reserve until mid-November. On the 30th, the Broncos activated Lock and named him the starter for a game against the LA Chargers the very next day. He threw for 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick, and en route to a last-second game-winning field goal to best the Chargers 23-20, winning his first NFL start. That's a feat in and of itself for a rookie quarterback. Now, this is where the fun began. The very next week against the Houston Texans, a game where the Texans were favored by 9 points, mind you, Lock threw for 3 touchdowns in the first half, along with a scoring drive right out of the gate to start the second quarter, setting up the Broncos with a 38-3 lead early in the third quarter. The Broncos would finish the game with a 38-24 victory, while Lock put up over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in just his second NFL start. The unknown quarterback out of Missouri would end off the season with a 4-1 QB record, tying John Elway's franchise record for most wins by a rookie quarterback. And the funny thing is, it took Elway 10 games to do it. Lock only needed 5. I mean, imagine if Lock played 10 games. At that rate, he would have had an 8-2 record, I'm guessing better more than 4 wins, considering he beat the Texans 38-24. Now, he finished the season with a 64.1 completion percentage, 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 3 picks over the course of 5 games. And just to remind you, the only game Drew Lock lost last year was against the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. So as you can see, Drew Lock has yet to receive the hype he deserves. But this might also just help the Broncos. The only people that seem to be hyping the Broncos up are Broncos fans, which I truly believe will help that locker room to stay humble and to continue to see themselves as the underdogs, which is a great mentality to have as a young team. Now, let's look at the additions that the Broncos have given Drew Lock since the 4-1 start. In January, Denver fired their offensive coordinator and brought in Pat Shurmur to take over the job. Now, granted, Pat Shurmur struggled as a head coach in New York, but he held his own as an offensive coordinator with the 13-3 2017 Minnesota Vikings. While the defense is often known for what led the Vikings to success in 2017, you can't help but to acknowledge the fact that Pat Shurmur brought the offense to a top 10 rank, up 13 spots from their 23rd overall offensive rank the season before. And clearly, Shurmur helped the Vikings as an offensive coordinator more than he hurt them. I believe the same will happen in Denver. The Broncos also added a solid running back in Melvin Gordon, along with a strong guard in Graham Glasgow. Now, in the draft, the Broncos selected Jerry Jeudy with the 15th overall selection, and Jerry Jeudy is arguably the best, if not the second best, wide receiver in the draft class. And not to mention, the Broncos also added a solid receiver in KJ Hamlet in the second round, along with a center in the third. So the Broncos now, just think about this, the Broncos now have a solid starting tight end in Noah Fant, second-year player, who brought in over 500 yards last season, 10th-ranked wide receiver Courtland Sutton, first-round pick Jerry Jeudy, and second-round pick KJ Hamler to throw to. Pro Football Focus ranked the Broncos as having the 10th best receiving core in the league. Not to mention, the Broncos have a solid defense. The Broncos D ranked 10th in points against and 12th in yards against last season, despite a lackluster 28th ranked offense. So if anything, we have a team with the potential of having both a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense, the perfect recipe for making a playoff spot, especially now considering the new 7-seed format in this year's playoffs. Now, let's actually look at the schedule the Broncos are facing this year and determine whether or not they can truly win enough games to make the playoffs in the first place. First off, let's look at the easy games. In Week 4, the Broncos face the Jets. It's an away game. It's in New York, granted, but I still think it's going to be an easy win. The Jets are in shambles right now. Granted, they have a solid relationship between the head coach and the quarterback, but arguably their best player just left and set the organization ablaze by calling them out, and especially calling the head coach out, and that honestly does a lot to a team. I made a video about it not too long ago if you want to look more into that, about that Jamal Adams departure and why that is going to hurt the Jets in the long run. But of all teams in the AFC East, I see the Jets being the worst. So Broncos against the Jets, I'm giving Broncos the win there. The next easy game is Broncos against the Dolphins at home. Now, the Dolphins are going to impress this year. They're going to outdo expectations, but the Broncos are a year ahead in terms of development. They're going to win this one. Not to mention it's a home game. The third easy game is Broncos against the Falcons as an away game. It's going to be a difficult one as it's an away game, but the Broncos are going to pull away. The Falcons are not a great team. They weren't a great team last year. They aren't going to be a great team this year. I think it's going to be a relatively close game, but I could very well see the Broncos winning by 2 possessions. The fourth game is Broncos against the Chargers at home. I believe they're going to beat the Chargers at home this year. It's a division rivalry, Chargers against the Broncos. The Chargers have a new quarterback. Granted, they have a solid secondary. They have a strong defense. They have a great receiver, a great running back. But I think the Broncos are going to be able to take out the Chargers at home. I think that's a given considering they're division rivals. And in Week 16, the Broncos face the Raiders at home. Again, division rival at home. The Raiders aren't a top team in that division. The Broncos are going to take them out at home. So, right off the bat, based off of those 6 games, we can start them out with a 6-0 record. Well, I mean, not necessarily, but now let's look through games that are a little harder, but, not terrible. The first one is week 2. The Broncos are going to face the Steelers. It's going to be an away game, and I think they're going to lose it. It's week 2. They're going to come off a win in week 1, and they're going to lose to Big Ben and company. Big Ben's going to be coming out, firing away early this season, and the Steelers are going to beat out the Broncos in week 2. The next kind of in the middle game is Broncos against the Raiders. I have the Broncos losing to the Raiders at least once this season. It could be home, could be away, but considering it's an away game, I'm going to go ahead and bet on this one to be the one the Broncos lose. And the third game is Broncos against the Chargers. Again, an away game, but I see the Broncos winning. The Broncos are going to beat one team in their division twice. It's going to be either the Broncos or the Raiders, but if I had to bet on it, I'd say it's the Chargers. The Broncos are going to beat them away and at home. They're going to take care of the Chargers, and it's going to be week 15 and 16. The Broncos are going to win both those games against the Chargers and the Raiders. They're going to need a good conference record to be able to make the playoffs. They're going to get it in those last 2 weeks. Now, the tough games, there's 7 games I see this year for the Broncos that are going to be very, very difficult. The first one, they're going to win. It's against the Titans, and it's at home. The Titans are coming off of an AFC Championship loss. It's going to be a very tough game, most likely decided by one possession. It's going to be a week 1 game. Everyone's fresh. But again, the Titans are coming off of an AFC Championship loss, and the hangover is still going to be there. But the Broncos, I believe their offense has the ability to put up some great numbers against that team, and I believe the Broncos defense is going to do solid against the Titans. Not great, but they're going to do solid. The next tough game is against the Bucs in week 3. They're going to lose that game. The Bucs offense is easily going to overpower that Broncos defense. The Bucs just have too much firepower to cover. You have to find a way to double cover Gronk, or he's going to find a way to get open. You have to find a way to double cover Evans, or he's going to get open. I mean, Goodwin is like 50-50 in terms of whether you want to cover him or not, double cover him, because he's a really solid receiver. And you can't forget about O.J. Howard and Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller is a great slot receiver that is seriously underrated in Tampa. And O.J. Howard is a great tight end who is also underrated in Tampa. They're going to lose that game. And simply, I just don't believe that the Broncos offense is going to be able to keep up with the Buccaneers offense. In week 5, the Broncos are going to face the Patriots. It's going to be an away game. It's going to be tough, and they're going to lose. Going to Foxborough is already tough, especially as a young quarterback. I forgot the exact numbers, but I know that Bill Belichick is absurdly great against first and second year quarterbacks, especially at home, no matter how promising you are. In week 7, they face the Chiefs at home. Now, the Broncos are going to upset the Chiefs once this season. They almost did it last year. I believe the Broncos are going to upset the Chiefs once this season. I'll take the Broncos at home in week 7. And the last 3 extremely tough games for them this season are going to be against the Saints at home. They're going to lose that one. It's easily explainable. And the next week, they're going to lose another game in a row against the Chiefs. It's an away game. They're going to have to go to Arrowhead. Granted, the fans aren't going to be as much of a problem, but just going to Arrowhead into that atmosphere, even with a lower amount of fans, is still going to be extremely tough for the Broncos to do. And there's no way the Broncos are going to beat the Chiefs twice this season. In week 14, the Bills face the Broncos. Now, granted, the Broncos have home field advantage here, but the Bills have a very young, very talented defense, and I think they're going to be able to take advantage of Drew Lock's inexperience. I think they're going to win that game. So when you put it all together, a win in week 1 against the Titans, 2 losses against the Steelers and the Bucs in week 2 and 3, a win in week 4 against the Jets, a loss in week 5 against the Pats, a win in game 6 against the Dolphins, a win in game 7 against the Chiefs, a win in game 8 against the Falcons, a loss against the Raiders, a win against the Chargers, 2 losses in a row against the Broncos and Chiefs, a win against the Panthers, a loss against the Bills, a win against the Chargers, and a win against the Raiders ends them off with a 9-7 record. A solid record if you're looking to make the playoffs, especially considering there's a 7th seed this year. They're going to be second in the AFC West. It's going to be a close one between them and the Raiders, but they're going to be second. and they're going to make the playoffs as the 7th or 6th seed. They could make a run for that 10-6 record, depending on if they can win one more of those tough games I described to you guys, or if they can win against the Steelers in week 2. They're close to being able to have that 10-6 record, but if I had to put my money on it, I'll give those good teams benefit of the doubt, and I'll put them at 9-7. They'll make the playoffs as the 7th or 6th seed. So there you have it, guys. That is the end of this episode. Now, before I go, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to start uploading twice a week on Thursday morning and Monday morning. So be ready for that. A new episode coming out just in a few days on Monday, and daily YouTube videos coming out every single day for the foreseeable future on YouTube at Fifth Down Huddle. Thank you so much for huddling up with me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.